morning sun spilled over the city, lighting up glass towers and reflecting off hovering vehicles that streaked past like silver comets. Lyra stood at the gates of the embassy, her small frame almost invisible against the enormous building. She clutched the strap of her worn bag nervously. Last night had been a shock. A human diplomat, one of the most respected in the city, had invited her to dinner, treated her with respect, and even praised her courage. She wasn't sure if it was real or a dream, but today, it was real, and she had to face the new day. Jonathan Creed was waiting for her. His posture was upright, his suit pristine, and his expression patient. When he saw her, his lips curved into a small smile. "Good morning, Lyra," he said. "Are you ready?" Lyra nodded, unsure what to expect. I think so," she admitted. Jonathan's smile widened. "Don't worry. Today is just the first step." He gestured to the massive doors of the embassy. As they entered, Lyra's eyes widened again. The halls were enormous, filled with humans and aliens from across the galaxy, moving in precise patterns, their conversations flowing like music. Robots and holographic assistants floated around, carrying documents or refreshments. Everything gleamed, polished, and perfectly controlled. Lyra felt tiny, like a single star lost in a galaxy of lights. But she didn't show fear. She had survived far worse on the streets. If she could navigate alleys patrolled by drones and avoid gangs, she could handle this. Jonathan led her to a small office, quieter than the main halls. "This will be your space for today," he explained. "You're going to observe, learn, and assist. Just watch first. There will be tasks later." Lyra's hands shook slightly as she looked around. The office was modest, filled with documents, holographic displays, and communication devices. It wasn't luxurious, but it was safe and clean. She felt an unfamiliar feeling. Comfort. Jonathan handed her a tablet. "Here," he said. "This contains some basic information about our diplomats, the embassies, and some alien species. Study it. Ask questions if you don't understand." Lyra nodded, taking the device carefully. She was used to surviving by instincts, not by learning, but her mind was sharp and curiosity sparked inside her. She began reading, absorbing every detail. Jonathan watched quietly, impressed by how quickly she grasped the information. Hours passed. Lyra asked questions and Jonathan answered patiently, explaining the importance of honesty, empathy, and strategy in diplomacy. He even asked her opinion on certain matters. Her answers were simple but insightful. She suggested solutions that seemed obvious to her, but Jonathan knew they were rare. People in the diplomatic world often overcomplicated simple problems. Lyra's straightforward thinking was a breath of fresh air. "Impressive," Jonathan said finally. "You see, Lyra, being smart isn't just about knowledge. It's about understanding people, understanding motives, and staying true to yourself. You've already done that." Lyra felt pride swell in her chest. Pride was unfamiliar. Usually she only felt fear, hunger, and the constant pressure to survive. Now she could feel that she mattered, that her mind and choices had value beyond survival. That afternoon, Jonathan led her to a diplomatic meeting. Representatives from multiple alien species had gathered, arguing over trade agreements and territorial disputes. Lyra stood behind him, observing carefully. At first, she felt lost. The language was complex, the gestures foreign, and the rules of etiquette confusing. But slowly, patterns emerged. She noticed subtle cues in the way certain representatives moved, the expressions they used, and how trust shifted with small gestures. Jonathan leaned down and whispered, "Watch closely, Lyra. This is where honesty, courage, and intuition can make a difference." Minutes later, a disagreement escalated. One alien delegate accused another of cheating on trade terms. Tension filled the room. Everyone waited for Jonathan to respond, but he paused, then turned slightly toward Lyra. "Your thoughts?" he asked quietly. Lyra's mind raced. She recalled her days on the streets where observing behavior and reading intentions saved her life. She noticed that the accusing delegate had a tremor in their tentacle, a sign of nervousness. The other delegate seemed calm but hesitant. Carefully, she whispered, "The first one is lying. They want leverage. The second is truthful but afraid of retaliation." Jonathan raised an eyebrow, impressed. He nodded subtly and addressed the room. Using Lyra's insights, he diffused the tension without anyone losing face. The delegates accepted the resolution, surprised at how fair and quick it had been. After the meeting, Jonathan smiled at Lyra. You just helped me save hours of negotiation. That was brilliant. Lyra blinked, astonished. I did? Yes, Jonathan said. You see things others miss because you've had to survive in the real world. That perspective is rare here. You have a gift. Lyra felt a warmth she had never known, not just pride but hope. Maybe this was a new life. Maybe she could be more than just a street alien surviving day by day. Days turned into weeks. Lyra learned quickly, absorbing diplomatic knowledge, languages, and cultural norms. Jonathan introduced her to important figures, showing her respect and treating her as an equal. She began assisting in negotiations, translating subtle cues, and suggesting solutions that impressed even the most experienced diplomats. Her presence did not go unnoticed. Some diplomats whispered, skeptical that a street alien could contribute meaningfully, but every time she succeeded, those whispers turned into admiration. Lyra, who once lived in shadows, was now shaping conversations that impacted entire planets. One day, during a critical negotiation between rival alien factions, tensions erupted. Threats were exchanged, and the atmosphere grew heavy with the possibility of conflict. Lyra studied the representatives carefully. She noticed that one delegate's eyes darted toward the exit repeatedly, a sign of fear or ulterior motive. Trusting her instincts, she whispered advice to Jonathan, suggesting a subtle shift in phrasing and a small compromise. Jonathan followed her guidance. Within minutes, the room calmed, and the delegates agreed to terms without violence or humiliation. Everyone in the room looked shocked. A street alien had just played a crucial role in resolving a high-stakes interplanetary dispute. Afterward, Jonathan clapped his hands lightly. Lyra, you just proved something important. Courage, honesty, and observation can achieve what force and power cannot. Never forget that, Lyra smiled. She felt a sense of purpose for the first time in her life. No longer was she just surviving. She was contributing, making a difference, and inspiring others. Word of Lyra's skills spread across the city and beyond. Humans and aliens alike began to take notice of the small green-skinned girl who had lived on the streets but now worked alongside one of the most influential diplomats. Some doubted her, some admired her, but all were forced to recognize her courage and intellect. Despite her rising reputation, Lyra remained humble. She remembered the nights she spent hungry, the alleys she had hidden in, and the cold that had seeped into her bones. She knew that empathy, courage, and honesty were what had brought her this far, not arrogance or power. Jonathan continued to mentor her, pushing her boundaries gently but firmly. He encouraged her to speak in public forums, represent delegations, and even lead smaller negotiations herself. Each time she succeeded, her confidence grew. One evening, after a long day of meetings and discussions, Lyra and Jonathan walked along the embassy garden. The lights reflected on the water fountains and alien flora glowed softly under the night sky. Lyra paused, taking in the calm beauty. I never imagined life could be like this, she admitted softly. Jonathan nodded. Most people can't imagine it, Lyra. But you saw the world differently even when it was dark and harsh. That vision brought you here. Remember, your courage and honesty matter more than any skill or title. Lyra smiled, feeling a sense of belonging she had never known. She realized that no matter how far she rose, she would never forget the streets that had taught her resilience, the hunger that had taught her focus, or the nights alone that had taught her courage. All of it had shaped her into someone capable of greatness. Months passed. Lyra grew not just in skill but in influence. She became a symbol, a story that others told. The alien girl who returned a wallet, who chose honesty over survival, and whose courage changed the course of diplomacy. People looked at her not as a street child but as a leader, a thinker, and a bridge between species. One day, during a ceremony honoring diplomats and contributors to peace, Lyra stood on the stage beside Jonathan. The audience, a mix of humans and aliens, erupted into applause. Lyra's violet eyes shimmered as she remembered her past. The streets, the nights of hunger, the moments of fear. She had come so far. Jonathan leaned closer and whispered, You earned this, Lyra. Your courage, your honesty, your heart. This is your moment. Lyra nodded, feeling proud and alive. She had survived the streets, but now she was thriving, shaping a better future for everyone, and she knew deep inside that the world would never forget the alien girl who chose honesty. Courage and hope over fear and survival. The applause continued, echoing through the grand hall, carrying the message of hope, of bravery, and of humanity at its best. Lyra smiled, knowing that her journey had only begun, but that she had already changed the lives of countless people and aliens, simply by being herself. The city lights flickered outside, but inside a new light. The hum in the distance grew louder, vibrating through the ground beneath Ryan's feet. He crouched behind a large glowing root, signaling for Lyra to stay close. Her bioluminescent skin flickered rapidly, a sign of fear mixed with excitement. Ryan could feel his heart pounding. The robotic faction that had haunted Lyra's memories for years had finally arrived, drawn to the forest like predators to a scent. He knew they were faster, stronger, and far more advanced than anything he had faced before, but he also knew that humans had one advantage: ingenuity. He whispered to Lyra, "Stay with me no matter what. Follow my lead." She nodded, gripping the protective device he had fashioned for her. Her small hand felt warm in his, a reminder of the bond they had built over days of shared survival. They moved silently through the thick foliage, using every trick Ryan had learned from his years as an explorer. The first encounter came suddenly. A squad of the robotic invaders emerged from the mist, their sleek metallic bodies reflecting the soft glow of the forest. They scanned the area with red sensors, searching for life forms. Ryan ducked behind a tree, motioning Lyra to stay low. He quickly assessed the situation. There were too many to fight directly, but the forest itself could be their weapon. "Follow me," he whispered. They darted toward a section of the forest where large vines hung from the trees like natural traps. Ryan set up a makeshift snare using broken wires from his ship. Lyra watched him closely, learning his tactics as they prepared to spring the trap. When the first robot stepped onto the vine, it snapped, sending the machine tumbling into a pit filled with sharp rocks and glowing plants. Its sensors went offline instantly. Lyra's eyes widened in amazement. "You really are like my father," she whispered, almost in awe. Ryan smiled grimly, knowing they had only just begun. The battle escalated quickly. Robots swarmed from all directions, forcing Ryan and Lyra to move constantly. Ryan used his environment creatively, collapsing large branches to block paths, setting small energy charges to stun the invaders, and using the forest's natural predators as unexpected allies. Lyra contributed too. Her agility and intimate knowledge of the forest allowed her to guide Ryan through hidden tunnels and over treacherous terrain. Together, they were a seamless team, human ingenuity paired with alien intuition. As night fell, the battle reached a tense lull. They had managed to disable several robots, but Ryan knew more were coming. Lyra's glow pulsed gently in the darkness, her fear evident but tempered by trust in Ryan. He took a moment to patch her small scrapes and scratches, careful not to hurt her. "You're doing great," he whispered. She smiled faintly, her confidence growing with each successful maneuver. In the quiet, Ryan considered their next move. The robot's goal was clear: harvest the rare resource that kept the forest alive. If they succeeded, the entire ecosystem and Lyra's home would be destroyed. Ryan realized that defeating the robots wasn't enough. They had to shut down the source directly. He remembered a central hub he had seen in the distance during earlier exploration, a structure partially buried in the forest. If they could reach it and disable the core, the robots would be rendered useless. The journey to the hub was perilous. The forest itself seemed to challenge them, with hidden pits, aggressive wildlife, and treacherous vines. Ryan led the way, using his experience to navigate safely while Lyra guided him to the least visible paths. Along the way, they encountered smaller squads of robots. Each encounter tested their coordination, their patience, and their trust in one another. But Ryan noticed something extraordinary. Lyra's courage never wavered. She faced danger without hesitation, inspired by his bravery. When they finally reached the hub, it was a towering structure of metal and glass, pulsating with energy. Ryan scanned it quickly. The control panel was heavily guarded, and automated turrets patrolled the area. They had no choice but to be clever. Ryan instructed Lyra to distract the patrols while he sneaked in. She hesitated for a moment, fear flashing in her eyes, but then nodded. She moved silently, her glow dimmed to blend with the shadows. Ryan admired her bravery. Inside the hub, Ryan's skills as an engineer were tested to the limit. Wires sparked, circuits glowed dangerously, and automated defenses activated at every step. He worked quickly, using tools salvaged from his ship, improvising with pieces he found inside the hub. Lyra's guidance from outside proved invaluable. She signaled the positions of incoming robots, allowing him to disable systems in the correct order. Time pressed against them, but their combined efforts kept them ahead. Suddenly, a larger robot emerged, its frame imposing and its sensors glowing bright red. It had been guarding the core. Ryan's heart raced. He ducked behind a console as it advanced, but then remembered a small explosive charge he had prepared. With a careful throw, he lured it onto the device. The explosion sent the machine reeling, finally giving Ryan access to the core's control panel. His hands moved quickly over the buttons and wires. Lyra's signals guided him perfectly. With one final command, the hub's energy output cut to 0. The forest immediately reacted. The glowing plants and trees dimmed slightly, but the deadly energy harvesting stopped. The robotic invaders froze in place, their programming disrupted. Ryan and Lyra stepped outside, breathing heavily. The forest was quiet now, save for the soft rustle of leaves. Ryan looked at Lyra, who was beaming at him, her skin pulsing with colors of relief and joy. "We did it," he said quietly. She ran to him and hugged him tightly. For a moment it felt like nothing else existed in the universe except the two of them, and the bond they had forged. The aftermath was both quiet and emotional. Alien tribes who had watched the events unfold cautiously approached. At first they were wary of Ryan, the human who had led the defense. But as they saw how he protected Lyra and disabled the robotic threat, their hesitation turned to admiration. They greeted him with gestures of respect, acknowledging the courage, intelligence, and resilience that had saved the forest. Lyra's father, in their eyes, would have been proud. As dawn broke over the forest, Ryan realized that his journey on this planet was not yet over. Lyra spoke softly about her father's disappearance. She hoped he might still be alive somewhere in another galaxy. Ryan promised her that he would help find answers, to continue protecting her and, if possible, reunite her with the man she had lost. Lyra's eyes filled with hope. She had lost so much, yet now she had someone who would not abandon her. Ryan also reflected on the profound impact this experience had on him. He had come to the planet as a lone explorer, seeking survival. But he had found something far greater: trust, companionship, and a reminder of what humans could offer to the universe. His courage, creativity, and determination had not only saved the alien girl but had earned the respect of an entire species. He understood now why humans could make a difference even in worlds so far removed from their own. Lyra stayed by his side as he prepared to leave. She refused to go into the forest alone, insisting on accompanying him for at least part of his journey. Ryan smiled at her stubbornness, recognizing it as a reflection of her strength and her trust in him. "We'll leave together," he said, fastening a harness to help her climb into his makeshift transport. She looked up at him, eyes shining with gratitude and a quiet joy he had never expected to see in someone so young. When Ryan finally lifted off from the forest floor, he looked down at the alien girl who had become his companion. Lyra waved, her glow softly pulsing in the morning light. She had trusted him when she had no reason to, and he had protected her when failure would have meant the end. Their bond had changed them both. He felt a sense of purpose beyond his mission, a responsibility not just to survive, but to carry forward the courage, protection, and loyalty that humans could offer. As the planet shrank behind him, Ryan knew one thing clearly: the alien girl had taught him more about bravery, trust, and hope than any human encounter ever could. And in turn, he had shown her that humans could be more than strangers or invaders. They could be heroes, allies, and a source of unwavering protection. Above all, he remembered her words spoken when they first met. "You smell like my father." He now understood their meaning fully. It was not a literal scent, but a recognition of courage, protection, and kindness, the very qualities that defined him and, in the eyes of Lyra, made him someone worth following. He had become the human she needed, not as a replacement for her father, but as someone who could help her face the future with strength and hope. And as Ryan charted a course back to civilization, he glanced at the controls, then at the small figure of Lyra beside him. The journey ahead was uncertain, the universe full of dangers and mysteries. But together, they would face them, bound by trust, courage, and the extraordinary connection between a human and the alien girl who refused to leave his side. For Ryan, the mission had begun as survival. Now it had become something far greater, a chance to prove that humanity could shine even in the darkest, most alien corners of the cosmos.